Pawn e2 to e4. Pawn c7 to c6. Knight b1 to c3. Pawn d7 to d5. Knight g1 to f3. Pawn d5 takes e4. Knight c3 takes e4. Knight g8 to f6. Knight e4 takes f6, check. Pawn e7 takes f6. Bishop f1 to c4. Bishop c8 to e6. Pawn d2 to d3. Bishop f8 to b4, check. Bishop c1 to d2. Bishop b4 takes d2, check. Knight f3 takes d2. Knight b8 to d7. Castle kingside. Castle kingside. Bishop c4 takes e6. Pawn f7 takes e6. Queen d1 to g4. King g8 to f7. Queen g4 to h5, check. King f7 to g8. Rook a1 to e1. Queen d8 to e8. Queen h5 takes e8. Rook a8 takes e8. Knight d2 to e4. King g8 to h8. Knight e4 to d6. Rook e8 to d8. Knight d6 takes b7. Rook d8 to b8. Knight b7 to d6. Rook b8 takes b2. Rook e1 takes e6. Rook b2 takes c2. Rook e6 to e7. Knight d7 to c5. Knight d6 to f7, check. King h8 to g8. Rook f1 to e1. Knight c5 takes d3. Rook e1 to e2. Rook c2 to c1, check. Rook e2 to e1. Rook c1 takes e1, check. Rook e7 takes e1. Knight d3 takes e1. Knight f7 to d6. Knight e1 to d3. Knight d6 to e4. King g8 to f7. Pawn f2 to f3. King f7 to e6. King g1 to f1. Pawn f6 to f5. Knight e4 to g5, check. King e6 to d5. King f1 to e2. Knight d3 to c1, check. King e2 to e3. Pawn f5 to f4, check. King e3 to d2. Knight c1 takes a2. Knight g5 takes h7. Rook f8 to h8. Knight h7 to g5. Rook h8 takes h2. Knight g5 to h3. Rook h2 takes g2, check. King d2 to d3. Knight a2 to b4, check. King d3 to c3. Knight b4 to a2, check. King c3 to d3. Knight a2 to b4, check. King d3 to c3. Knight b4 to a2, check. King c3 to d3. The game is a draw.